Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubh Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Sleep In Saturday. It's Q&A day. It's a day we do questions and answers, but today we're doing it live because we got a whole crew here live. Say Harry Bowl, everybody. Woo! No one can hear you because it's a special microphone. So it sounds like I said, say hello, everybody. It was like, cricket. But there's a big gang of people here in the living room from teacher training and from our yoga farm stay, which turned out to be quite fun and successful. We had a really nice kirtan last night, and Kaustubha's up here visiting us, which is really fun to have Kaustubha. Stays in his room, chants Hare Krishna. What did you do for Sleep In Saturday? Did you sleep in?
No, I did a lot of work that I didn't have to do because you didn't tell me that we were going to take in questions from the audience today.
Fortunately, you're tolerant.
You asked, so I'm telling you the truth.
I went for a bike ride. I woke up and went for a bike ride this morning. I went straight up Schilling's Crossing. That's like the climbing the Himalayan peaks. It's exhausting, but it was good. I felt good. Listened to Ayendra the entire way. I felt relieved. We had a kirtan last night. You know, Kaustubha, the people that get into Bhakti now is so much different than the old days, I feel like. We have all these like beautiful, like professional people doing their thing, seriously taking their life. And then, when we were young, it was just sort of like the ashrams were like desperate, like you over there, you want to, yeah, come on, you can be in, you want to join? And like, I don't know, maybe I should even tell this story. I was going to talk about last night. It was just like we're in the middle of this satsang going on. And like, an imitation Narada Muni and a friend just like walked into like we're having a satsang. They're walking and like talking, screaming, singing. Maybe I should, you know what? I gotta be more compassionate. But they did just sort of barge in and like Hare Krishna and starts saying Hare Krishna, wearing gamshas, which are like Indian towels. They just sat down. We're like, but who wants an offering? Where do we put our offering? And I was just like, I tried to be cool. I was like, welcome. How are you? And they're like, thank you. And I was like, where are you from? That was my question. Where are you from? It's a nice question. That's what you would say to someone who walked in to a sort of a private gathering. Where are you from? And you know what his answer was? What do you mean? In what time and space? I was like, listen, I'm freaking 57 years old. I don't have time for this nonsense. I was like, I don't know, the present. Anyway, that's what we did last night.
It sounds like sometimes, I didn't see these people. I don't know anything about them, but sometimes it seems like there's kind of a hippie vibe that relates to the Indian thing. And there's connections there for sure. But if you're detached from that actual culture, it's actually a culture that's like really refined and everything. It's coming from a culture that's like there's etiquette and there's refinement and there's order, and it's really a lot about order and getting your life in order and everything. So maybe there's a disconnect there somehow.
There's a disconnect there. There's a little disconnect. Everybody's just like, what?
And then you think the more externally otherworldly you are, the more spiritual you are.
Sure.
And then you just play that up. You can't even answer a normal question like, where are you from?
Yeah. Right. There was no just like basic etiquettes of all, hey, sorry, we're late. We'll be quiet. We'll introduce my name is this. I'm from here. Let's get to know you guys later, etc. It was sort of like they want to take over the show. And I was just like, come on, people. In the name of spirituality, we're going to be like rude like this. Imagine if I just came to anybody else. Imagine I just went to the neighbor's house. Hi. What are you doing here? I don't know. I just want to be here. What kind of question is that? Well, why are you in my living room? Because think about that. Because that's where we were at last night with these guys.
All right. Well, I'm sure they're nice people.
You know what? They're
You're
probably
listening.
they're probably listening, and I'm sorry. But you never know. It's like you're home and people just randomly cruising into your home. Anyway, let's get into our questions. Miss Mara, do you have any announcements there? Oh God. She's like, nah, just pass.
Bhakti recovery meetings today at 9:30. Sloka memorization is also today at 10 a.m. Tomorrow's show, I think we're going to do Q&A again at 8, right?
Q&A might touch a little bit on the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We're still.
Well, if you want to do that, we could do a whole show of it. But
Could do a
we'll
show.
do something good tomorrow.
Oh, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Okay, let's bring on our first question. Drummond, come on down. Straight from Brooklyn, New York. Woo! Now, have you been on live before, Drummond? I think you have. Oh, you never have. Oh, come on in here. Here's the microphone. Okay, yeah. Kostuba, you take the mic, okay? Yeah, first we have to like give him a little introduction.
Drummond.
Hello, how are you doing?
What's your story? How'd you get here?
My story.
What do you like in what time and space?
Yeah, it depends.
It's really interesting. In one sense, it's like a good question. Where am I from? I've been a million places. Where am I actually?
Maybe he was just on another level.
He was just deeply wise, and he was trying to like enlighten me. And all my sincere chanting called him to me, and I chased him away. I was really ready to go say, listen, I got a 20 gauge upstairs. If you don't get in your crazy truck and drive out of here.
Okay, Drummond.
Yeah.
How did you get?
So Stephanie, my wife, the other Brooklyn Berman, has sort of gradually become closer and closer and deeper into this community. And I just followed in her a few steps behind in her footsteps.
Your accent, if I'm not mistaken, sounds like I pick up a little Scottish in it.
Scottish, yeah.
Scottish.
Yeah.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah, I was raised in Scotland. Yeah.
And then raised in Scotland, and how long you've been in the States?
24 years, no more, 27 years, something like that.
So it's still there a little bit.
Now I'm going to give you a cue. Why do you like Bhakti? Why do you like it? Well, you're like a professional in the real world. Me and Stu have never done anything real our entire life. Why do you like Bhakti? And you got into it late in life too.
Yeah, I'm really old. Yeah. I mostly, to be honest, I just love the people. I love the community. I just see every event that we go to, we seem to make new friends, new interesting people, and the everything that you live by. It, I'm not sure of how deeply spiritual I have become yet, but everything that you do and say makes a lot of sense to me. So I feel comfortable and happy here.
Simple as that. It makes sense and good people.
That's a great. You know what? A lot of people want things that make sense in their life and want good people in their life. Yeah, we got that. Welcome to the show. All right.
Yeah.
What's your question, brother?
Oh,
Got it on the phone.
so
Right in the mic, sir.
So I'm new to all of this, so I'm a little out of my depth even asking this, but I asked Steph and she said, I have no idea. You ask those guys tomorrow. So it's about reincarnation. So my understanding is that we pick up in the next body where we left off in the previous one, right? So it's a path towards the goal. But if we have no memory of the previous incarnation, how can we learn from where we may have gone wrong last time? And also, how can we pick up on the spiritual path if we don't know where we are on it?
Good question.
That's a really good
Yeah.
question. If God was really merciful, wouldn't he just say, yeah, you can remember all of it so you never make those dumb mistakes again? But instead, it's just like we're going around with this trauma or this pain, and we make the same mistakes again and again. Got a good answer for this?
Try. Should Drummond stay here uncomfortably, or should he? I'm just thinking about you. I'm happy to have you here, but on his knees. So I've heard this question many times. I think it's a very logical question. I think we always want things, we always try to squeeze things into the box of our understanding. And I think we have to be careful to kind of be willing to say, maybe this whole thing doesn't work according to my idea of how it should work. Right. So it seems like when I take in all of the information from the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam and these other literatures, it seems to me like we've voluntarily entered into a realm, and it's not just as soon as you say, oh, I think I would prefer the other one, you're there. But there has to be a full internal shift that has to take place, right? A full internal awakening, and it's not cheap somehow. It's going to be a challenge. It can be a beautiful challenge. It's going to have its joys. It's going to have some tears in there, and you're going to have to really want it to get back. That's what it seems to be. You're going to have to really want it. So it's not going to be just you flick a switch. And so the question about reincarnation, there are two parts to your question, if I remember correctly. One is, how do we know where to pick up where we left off? And the other part was like, how do you actually grow or learn from it if you can't remember what went on before? And so it seems that there's never a time, or at least when you get into that human form, in one sense, there's never a time where we can't open ourselves up to the truths. In one sense, the truths are all around us. The clues are all around us. The messages are all around us, and God is in the heart at every moment. So that God can remind us of what, it's almost like he's there to remind us to put the clues in, unless we're saying, I don't want it. If we're saying, I don't want it, it's kind of like we can forget. And the more that we're turning around and saying, I want it, I want to know more, the more that everything that we're supposed to remember, we can remember, right? This is 15th chapter, which we're all studying now, right? Sarvashitchaham hridisana vishto, mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha, that Krishna says, I'm in the heart of every living entity, and from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. If we say, I want to forget you for a while, and I want to go into the illusory realm, I want to go into the dream world, he's like, I can give you the forgetfulness that you need to really enter into it. If you remembered all along, we were talking about this yesterday in the class. We saw someone driving around on a motorcycle, and we said, if a little boy sees that, he thinks, I want to ride a motorcycle. And we talked about like how I don't know if they still have these, but when you're like in front of the grocery stores, they have like a little toy motorcycle or something like that you drop the coin in and it just kind of vibrates a little bit.
Yeah, those were great.
It's
A horse. Sometimes you even get a mini Ferris wheel. Those were great.
So now if the kid's on that little motorcycle or horse or whatever, and someone comes up, this isn't a real motorcycle. This is, That's the last thing the kid wants to hear. The kid wants to hear like, wow, you're driving the motorcycle. He just wants to have the illusion reinforced so that the experience of illusion feels more real. And so if we want to forget, we can forget. But if we want to remember, Krishna can just give us he can send every clue that we need in life. He can wake us up in different ways. So I think that it's said that when you leave one body and take on the next, you pick up where you left off. And I think it is like you're picking up where you left off, but you're also picking up where you left off in a bit of a different equipment. It's kind of like you might drive one car and then get out of it and get in another car and then drive. You're picking up where you left off, but it's not exactly the same either. In one sense, the mind, you forgot a lot of stuff, and that can be a really good thing. Just having the blessing to clear out a lot of the junk can be exactly what we need to kind of accelerate on the next level. And again, anything that we need to be reminded of, we can be reminded of as soon as we're ready for it. Maybe we go through, 13, 15, 20 years, or in your case, maybe even more of time before we're calling for it. But as soon as we're calling for it, we can be reminded. So there's someone, we're ignorant in this changing. We don't remember it. We're clueless. We pop into a new place. We're wondering why we're here. But the Paramatma is with us the entire time and fully aware. This is what's being stated in the Gita and the Bhagavatam. And just as soon as we're ready, he's ready to instruct. So I don't know. I think that's part of it. The other part of the question was, why don't you comment on that, and then we can deal with the other part of the question.
Sure. I was just going from what I understood. I only read the question once or heard the question once, but it sounded like, what the heck, God? Like, why don't you just let us remember the last life so we don't make the same mistakes again? But I can say in my own life, just yesterday or the day before yesterday, usually when I wind down at night, there's three things in my mind. I think of, okay, Mara's like looking, yeah, right. No, yes, there is, Mara. You do not know. What
to this deep reflection every
No,
night.
there is. There is. When I get ready for bed, it's like I get into a deeper breathing just to calm my mind. I get into a focus on Krishna. I get into a focus, and then I sort of like close my eyes and try to keep that focus. Right. But the other day, like Gus wasn't let in. He was lost. He was barking, and I was just like, okay, get Gus in here. So once I go after 10 o'clock, it's like
This is your dog.
That's my dog. Yeah. After 10 o'clock, the demons show up. And so instead of meditate on Krishna, start to breathe, it was just sort of like oat milk ice cream. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm satiated from dinner and dessert. That doesn't stop. It's 11 o'clock at night, oat milk ice cream, nut butter, caramel syrup. Those are the three things working, a triangulation controlling me. My point is, I know better because I've done these late night benders my entire life. I know better in this lifetime. I don't have to wait. I don't have to see my last life to learn lessons. I should be learning lessons from 2 days ago. But the thing is, what Kaustubh is saying is you got to really just opt in. And our life is a series of forks in the road. Will I keep choosing north, or am I going to choose south again today? And sometimes those patterns develop ruts in the road that we can't get out of. And so the process of what you came here for, association, that actually changes you. Every time, like sometimes I'm doing that bender right in front of Mara, and she's just looking at me. She's just noticing with that eye of hers. She doesn't say anything because she didn't want to be naggy, but she's looking at me shamefully, shaming. No, she's like my intelligence trying to just like coach me out of it. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. And sometimes, but the point is that community will make us wake up, and also something will happen to us and make us wake up at one point in our life. We're like, now It's over. I cut it. We probably all, the reason why you're here today is something was cut and you're like, you know what? I'm signing up for this. I'm coming here today. No, I have a lot of other things to do, but I'm going to make this a priority. So you've already chosen in a lot of ways. I'm going to go north. I'm not going to choose, oh, I got work to do. I might as well, I should just stay and do this. We've made some decision. People who go on a pilgrimage, they've made a decision. People who go on a retreat, they've made a decision in their life. It's a series of these decisions that change us, not necessarily a lesson, because these lessons we have to take our life seriously first with a decision, which is like an incision, which is like a cutting ourselves, like the 15th chapter, like the banyan tree. We got to cut that tree, so to speak, of the material world. So I don't think it's just enough. And also I was just thinking, and I never thought about this before, but if you could remember all your lives, there's something, a necessity in the false ego just to stay embodied. I think you'd lose your mind. You know what I mean? I'd be like, Kostuba, you're not Kostuba. You're, Emily from last life. You son of a bitch. You broke my heart and now you're back. That's Kostuba. Don't you give me this Kostuba stuff.
Previews of Raghunath's future dementia.
Well, man, you would just be walking through. You wouldn't know who's who. Are you my
The
dad?
problem is you would.
Dad, can you take me to soccer? You're not my dad. I'm not your dad, and you know it.
Actually, what you're saying is very interesting. And yeah, this is a great question. It's kind of awakening some thoughts in me, but Krishna, he speaks so much about the Paramatma just in Bhagavad Gita and again, Bhagavatam. It's so much about Paramatma, so much about our understanding where we are in life has to do with this understanding that there's someone monitoring it, arranging it, speaking to us, reminding us, awakening us, putting us to sleep, the whole thing. And we are really, Krishna, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, there's that verse, right? Ishvar sarvabhutanam hrideshar tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutanam yantarudhani maya, that Krishna says, I'm in the heart of every living being. And ooh, you okay? But he says that he's directing the wanderings of all living beings, but he's not just directing them without any of our input. He's directing them according to what we desire, what we want, what we're calling for. And you got it under control? Okay. And then he says in the next verse, he says, surrender unto that Paramatma completely. Like surrender completely. And when you think about it, we are like, think about this, right? Okay, so you make a certain amount of spiritual progress in one life, you die, you take a new birth, and then you go through childhood, and in that entire childhood, it's possible you may not have like any real obvious spiritual connection, but the Paramatma is right there following the whole thing, knowing what's going on. Like, okay, the person's going to get their education, they're going to let me provide a certain amount of suitable kind of love and affection and psychological kind of grounding that this person's going to need, and let me give them a few childhood experiences which are going to become important later in life that have no apparent clear spiritual connection. And then when you're 15 years old, Paramatma sends some experience to you, right? That now you're picking up where you left off. You're doing it in your new car, like with your new computer, which was like your childhood upbringing. And you've picked up where you've left off now, but you've picked it up again in that new vehicle and you're ready to go. And I want to tell one story about you. I hope it's not too personal.
Probably will be, but it's okay.
But it's like, this to me just illustrates how even when we think we're disconnected, we're connected. And that is that, Raghunath, came to Bhakti at about 21, 22 years old, dove in head first, lived a life as a monk, traveled to India, did the whole thing, came back, then picked up his band, started to teach Bhakti through that band. And that went on, let's say you went from about 88 or so until about 10 years down the road, you became a little bit more, let's say, disconnected from the devotees, from the practice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay saying that I went through a dark night of the soul, and I always kept connections with my gurus, but I was sort of like distance and had bad association.
And so I don't want to try to characterize exactly where your mind and heart was at, but you definitely weren't like, God, show me the way. God, you know, like I want to be your servant at every moment.
I was sort of I still had a strong connection with God, but as far as like Krishna Bhakti, I was way out of it.
And in terms of daily practice and
Daily practice, way out of it.
so there was this drift in a sense.
There was a drift. There was a drift. It was a tough lesson time in my life. Yeah.
Okay, so now here's this person who's in so many ways for so many years said, God, I'm yours, direct me, and then at a certain point just began to drift. Now he's drifting, but Paramatma is not drifting. Like Krishna's right with him the whole time, knowing past, knowing future, knowing his heart, knowing what he needs, still involved. And I bring this up because it was at that point, you know, Raghunath says, well, let me get into martial arts, right?
Yeah, it was I want something tangible. I want to know, you know, I can tell you what
We don't have to go too deep
into the details. I won't go to the details, but that's when I wanted to get. I got really serious about my yoga practice and really serious about martial arts. Yeah.
So my point is, where did that desire come from? Where did that direction come from? We could say that's Paramatma saying, hey, get into martial arts. Hey, get deep into asana. Just preparing you for a future when he knows you're going to swing back. And it was in that time, I just find this so interesting. It was in that time when apparently he was at his most disconnected that he made a connection in his life. And that was that you started to practice martial arts with Joe Rogan. So then you come back, you know, now 20 years later, you know,
and teach yoga to Joe Rogan.
Yeah. And so then not long after that, your enthusiasm for practicing bhakti got reignited in you, and you began to use your yoga experience as you used your hardcore band experience to share bhakti with people. Now you're using your yoga experience to share bhakti with people. And then 20 years down the road, we started podcasts, and a month
after we start the podcast, haven't talked to Joe Rogan in maybe 10 years, but haven't hung with him in 20 years.
And so a month later, he gets a text from Joe Rogan saying, I want to bring you onto my show. Now he gets on Joe Rogan's show and Raghunath speaks about Bhagavad Gita. When I think about this, I think in the history of the time since the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, this may have been the largest one-off presentation of the Bhagavad Gita in history, right? Because like how many people saw that? If you count how many people saw it on YouTube, heard it on other platforms, and then you chop that thing up into, you know, that's what they do, right? They chop it up into all these little segments. And then how many saw those? 20 million people, 25 million people, 30 million people?
I think one video clip got 17 million, one YouTube clip.
So like maybe 50 million, who knows how many people. That presentation of bhakti that you gave on let's say, especially on Bhagavad Gita, was probably the largest outreach in one go in history. And that was because at the time where you were apparently drifting, I believe Paramatma was very specifically directing you in a particular way.
You mean Paramatma put me in Maya? Thanks, Paramatma.
Paramatma stayed with you while you were in Maya. But my point was directing all along. So apparently when we're totally adrift, we're not necessarily totally adrift. And when we're born with apparent total ignorance, Paramatma is not ignorant, and can be, you know, just like he's telling the little turtle cracking out of the shell, run for the water, you know, it's telling us so many things about how to go, where to go, so that at the right moment, we can pick up exactly where we left off. And that may happen in so many varieties of ways that we're entirely unaware of.
Mm. Thank you. That was very gracious. And I think that's a good answer for Drummond. Thank you, Drummond. Harry Bowl. All right, Costume. Yeah. It's interesting, huh?
You're like, hey, maybe I wasn't so off after all.
Yeah, I was pretty. Maybe I'll get into Maya now. Maybe Paramount will.
What'll happen next?
Don't try this at home, people. Okay. Costuba said it. I didn't say it. Okay. Who's next? Who knows? They're number 2. You know who it is. Sandy Clemmer. Get that coming down. Sandy Clemmer from Boston, empowered yoga teacher. Harry Ball, welcome, Sandy Clemmer. From Boston Yoga Union, traveled between India many times over. Oh, Sandy, it's great to have you at Super Soul Farm again. This is your second home.
It is.
Okay, so you're gonna hold the mic, stick your little face right in here so we can see you, and talk to us.
Yeah, so my question is about in all the readings I've done within the Vaishnav tradition, it's pretty clear to cut all association with non-devotees. And the tone feels very direct, very harsh, and at times, to cut association with family, with friends, with anybody who's non-devotee. And so my question is that can feel in contrast to really the heart of the teachings about seeing all beings as spirit soul, finding that love and that connection and that appreciation. And so I'd love you guys to speak to that.
Good question. Good question. They are very serious about these statements. Like, thanks, Sandy. About yeah, that's why I quoted her yesterday. A satsanga, abandon a satsanga. Your sangha, your group that doesn't talk about sat, they talk about asat, temporary things. Abandon them. Now, that sounds harsh. I love my brother. He's a hunter and a fisherman. Should I just abandon him? Yeah. No. Now, the point is when you get very focused, I'll just run with this first. When you get really focused on
that you were doing that.
When you get really focused on your spiritual life, other things drift away. But that's true with anything. If you want to get really serious about ballet, you got to start letting other things fall to the wayside. You get really serious about soccer. Then when all the kids are doing something else, you're like, you know what? I'm just going to practice soccer. That's true. When we hear about it in other sports or arts or professions, we say, wow, that guy's very serious about their life. That guy's becoming an expert. He's a peak performance athlete. When you do it in your spiritual life, they think you're some nutty fanatic. But the thing is, you just want to get focused and you lose taste for it. And therefore, when we're mature in our bhakti, it's not like we're hating on people, but we actually have compassion because you start untying yourself from the knots that have tied you up in your bad choices. That's what spiritual life is. I'm going to stop making bad choices. I'm going to make better choices. And you feel immediately free. Every Friday night, I just go out and get drunk, and Saturday morning would be a waste. I'd sleep in. I wasn't good for my health. I was gaining weight. I'm not going to make that choice anymore. I'm going to make a better choice. After a while, you start seeing your loved ones who are still making that choice. And we're not trying to cut ourselves from everybody but we love, but we start to realize they don't see that yet. And so what you do is you get really internal. Sometimes we preach it, but sometimes we really encourage to go internal and set the example. And when you set the example, we're not saying cut the association, but in the exchange that comes with relationship, right? When I'm like me and Kostuba exchange things, I cry and he says, Raghu, come here. I love you. I love you. You mean so much to me. And then he cries. Then he cries. And I say, you know what? It's okay. It's going to be okay. I love you. Come here. Hug it out.
That hasn't happened yet. I hope it never does.
It's in my turbo scenarios. So the exchange that comes in normal relationships is a little bit different because you've already put yourself on a higher standard of life, of what you consume. Like we don't want to consume poor foods, unhealthy foods. But we also don't want to consume a person's bad reverence for Maya. People have reverence for Maya. They're excited by the romance of Maya. Like, let's go out to the pub. That's a romance of Maya. And if you actually think that Maya through, what am I going to get out of that? We're cutting the romance of the material world, and we're placing that romance in reality, in a spiritual life. We're hyping ourselves not for, let's go to the steakhouse or the pub or, on a hunting expedition. We're hyping ourselves up for our spiritual life. And that actually delivers what it says. So we use the example of Jesus. Jesus was famous for, or got criticized for rather, hanging out with tax collectors and prostitutes, right? It's not because he wanted the association of tax collectors and prostitutes. He was trying to give them association, not take their association. In Bhakti, we realize, okay, I'm going to be careful what I consume. So if I'm going to hang out with people, I will give them association. I got to be very careful not to take their association. Because if I take their association, you got to be careful who your teachers are, because you become like your teachers. If your teachers have bad qualities, bad habits, then you're going to take them on just through the dynamic of hearing and opening yourself up. In the yoga system, we become like archaeologists who are digging through tons of earth, but just like looking for something valuable, a piece of gold, an old relic, etc. We're not just collecting tons of earth. We don't want to just be consumers of everything. We want to be very selective what I put in my ear and my mouth and my nose and my thoughts, etc. Because we're trying to raise our consciousness. So in my life, I had a very distinct cut with my family and friends. I had good friends, good family, but for my own benefit, I needed to cut. But then later, I reintegrated it all with my life, and I feel very comfortable with them. But I think for what I needed, I have to cut it. Some people feel the same way with an intoxicant like alcohol. Some people will say, I will never go into a bar ever again, because once I get there, it triggers me. So some people need to know where they draw the line in the sand. And some people are just less extreme like me. You know what? I'm just going to add Bhakti to my life. That's okay. It changes me. It makes me feel good. I don't think Drummond, who works in advertising, is going to be like, you're all in Maya. He's not going to go to the workplace. You're all in Maya. What are you thinking about? What are you eating? Knocking people's chicken salads out of their hands. I don't think that's his plan. I think he's going to go in there and say, this is my thing, and I'm going to put it to my life. And if people invite him out for drinks in the steakhouse, you might be thinking, you know what, I'll go, but I'm not going to. I can get a salad or something like that. So yeah, there has to be some discipline about what we consume, and if we want to evolve. But at the same time, you have to find your own pace of how much you can take. Some people we get us, like, no, I'm actually happy in the workplace. Then 3 years later, you're like, you know what? I've changed so much. I'm over my job. I'm over it. We watched it with Mara. Mitch Mara was the #1 catering company in Columbia County. All other caterers were like, man, we can't touch her. We can't touch this woman.
Trying to drag her down.
Yeah. But, she grew up serving and preparing meat. And therefore, it was like, as she came into Bhakti, she came to this massive fork in the road. Like, what am I supposed to do? This is how I make my living. This is how I built my catering empire. This is what keeps me head and shoulders above the rest. And then also all of her employees, because if you work in a kitchen, did you ever see that show Bear? It's all about restaurants and stuff like that. I've never seen it, but someone told me. But the type of mentality that people bring in the kitchen is like crazy and lewd. And Mara used to tell me, yeah, these guys talk about everything. And I said, Mara, you got to raise the standards in the kitchen. Everybody chants japa. You play kirtan. I don't want to hear any sexual talk and locker room talk while you're cooking and stuff like that. And slowly she changed the consciousness of the kitchen. Slowly she shifted to plant-based, and it just naturally happens. She went through a period where she was still serving meat, and then eventually just got too. It was good at that time, but it just got too much, and she just shifted. So yeah, we're all going to find our own level, and we're all unique signature people, and we'll have a signature transformation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The question, it had to do with kind of striking a balance, I suppose, right? Like on one hand, we're hearing this information that's saying, well, on one hand, we're hearing about compassion, about kindness and generosity, seeing the good, loving everyone. And on the other hand, we're saying cut the association. So one sounds soft, one sounds hard, right? One sounds sweet, one sounds a little bitter, and how to make sense of it. And so walking this path of bhakti, there's a clear cut side to it, and there's also a subtle side to it. And a lot of this has to do with tuning, where you tune it, right? You like that?
Tuning.
Yeah. And if we're very fortunate, we get guidance from someone that's mature.
Ooh, yes. Yes. That's a big one. No, I'm serious. Because people new to it, they can act in very fanatical ways and encourage us to act in fanatical ways.
Or even people that aren't new to it, like they just.
Yes, they've been around a while, but they still are immature in how they balance their spiritual and material life.
And it may be immature. It may even just be that they're different and they just have a different approach to it too.
Yeah. Kastupa's mature. That's why I like him. Sometimes I'll say to him, "You're so mature. Hug me."
That hasn't happened either. And sometimes I say, Raghunath, you're acting very immaturely.
And sometimes I say, I just need a hug today. That's all.
But here's the thing. We need to find what we call a like-minded sangha. We need to find mature sangha. We need to find people that we trust that can help us fine tune. You're asking this question as a way of doing that. It's kind of saying like, hey, I want to follow this sincerely. I want to follow it the right way. I want to be able to place my entire faith in it. But when I hear certain instructions, it sounds to me like it's going against the part that's really speaking to my heart. So help me make sense of this? And an immature approach on that level would be like, hey, this rubs me the wrong way. I'm out of here. And a more, I would say, a wiser, more mature approach, or maybe even a more sincere approach would be to say like, hey, can you help me figure out how these two work together? Because, and a mature practitioner of bhakti yoga should be able to help us fine tune it, help us understand how there's really never a time where this isn't compassionate, but sometimes we also need instructions that will seem a little rigid or a little callous. That there's that aspect to it too. One person may never need instructions like that, and one person may need a lot of instructions like that, just based on where they're at. These people walked into your scene yesterday, like maybe no matter how soft you are with that kind of person, they kind of need someone to say, hey, the way that you're behaving right here, you're thinking it's super spiritual. You're really being inconsiderate, like maybe they need a little, and even different people handle that in different ways. But I suppose, adding on to all that Raghunath shared.
How did I handle it, people? How did I handle it? It's okay.
Last night?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Joe would have sort of run him out. I think if it was Joe, Joe would be like, "Get out of here! I'm gonna kick here."
But in any case, with this sangha question, I liked a lot of what Raghunath. I liked all of what Raghunath said, but in particular, you mentioned that you gave a vision of how how one applies that instruction. Asat Sangha Tyaga, a Vaishnava Achar. It's saying the behavior of a Vaishnava is that they give up Asat Sangha. Now, some people in a certain state of mind will hear that instruction and think, and I know plenty of devotees that are like this, and I honor them too, but they'll think like, yeah, take that instruction, don't water it down, walk up to the people and say, you're out of my life, and never see them again. Like, that's one way you could interpret it. And there's other ways that you can interpret it as well. So like Raghunath was saying, even at different times of one's progression in life, that the tuning on that may be shifted, right? At a certain point, I needed to kind of step away from certain people. And then later I was able to kind of go back into it, not absorbing their association, but in a sense, giving my association. And so there's that. And even you could take this asat sangha. What does that mean? In the simplest interpretation, it means people that don't practice bhakti, right? But like, what does asat mean? Like, sat means truth, right? Asat means like untrue. So it could mean that you're trying to remove everything, taking the illusion out of your relationships, right? Like, when I sit down with this person that I've known for all these years, we talk about all this illusion. Our conversation goes into this whole illusory realm of just dwelling on the mundane, and it's just wasting my time, and it's just feeding in more thoughts that aren't helpful to me. So asat sangha tyaga, remove that illusory association, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to tell this person, I'm cutting you out of my life. It means you have to remove that illusory part of the association, so it could be done in a more fine-tuned way.
Yes. I've done things in less than gentle ways, like the books you were saying, Sandy, that sometimes they're very heavy. Sometimes, yeah, I became very heavy like that, and I would have done it different. I wouldn't have called my brother a demon, what I mean? I would have. That's because you're a demon. Don't you get it? You're a demon.
So all this being said, I think there are ways that we can understand that instruction that aren't going to be at odds with a mood of compassion. But maybe what I want to share most is this idea of, if you can find that mature devotee, right? This is a lot of what, if you really want to achieve the goal of this bhakti yoga by the end of this life, seek out that association. Try to do this in a way that's like not based on, how to say it, not based on the personality cult type of dynamics, not based on external thing. Oh, that person smile, or I saw something in their eyes, or this kind of guru kind of veneer. But try to really understand who has the mature understanding of this and lives it in a mature way.
I saw a picture of him and I knew he was my guru. I don't buy that.
So yeah, it really, who's really embodying, can clearly communicate and really embody that mature understanding, application of this tradition. The tradition is going to require us to interpret it one way or another, because even if you're just trying to say, I take it as it is, there's going to be things that seem to contradict. And so it's going to take maturity to put them together and always be moving in the real spirit of the Vaishnava, right? Always be moving in that real spirit is always compassionate. It's always kind. Even if sometimes it seems a little rough, even sometimes if it seems to be expressed a little rough, it's always there. The mature Vaishnava will help you find it, rather than instruct you to be callous or too rigid yourself. So that association is key. Finding that association is key.
Good answer, people, and good question, Sandy. I'd say we take one more. We'll go a few minutes over. I say we take one more. Want to hold pinkies? Okay. Just thought you might want to connect. Okay. Who's number 3 today? Number 3, come on down. No, with What, Stephen Walters had one? No. Okay, Sabrina had one. She's panicking. Get over here. Sabrina from Louisville. Where are you from? Nashville. Come on down, Sabrina. All right, welcome to the show.
Hi.
What's your story?
My story.
Wait, you got to hold the mic, put it right to your lips, and what's your story?
Okay. My story is that I began practicing yoga a couple of years ago in Nashville, and I had the fortune to run across a great teacher, Cindy Lunsford.
Closer.
Okay, great teacher, Cindy Lunsford, and here I am now at Super Soul having this amazing experience.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now you got to give it back.
Okay.
When I reach my hand out, you got to give it back. We're going to play a game called Share. And so, how's your experience? What are you getting out of this training? She's doing the 200-hour training here at Super Soul Farm. What are you getting out of it?
A lot of knowledge, but also a lot of spiritual movement, I would say, right? Beginning to open. Yes, a lot of shifting going on. Definitely.
Okay, so why don't you ask your question?
Okay, so my question is, transcendental sound plays such a large role in this practice. Can you talk a little bit more about the role of Om in that, I guess, context?
Question.
Good question. What did I say yesterday? I gave you a good answer yesterday.
That was really good.
Now I can't even remember what I said. And I had something. I was like, well, I don't even know where I'm getting this from. I was like, God's speaking through me, but now I can't remember. Here, why don't you answer?
He gave it and he took it back.
From Apohanam Cha, from God comes remembrance and forgetfulness. Now he just puts it, no. So now Krishna wants Kaustubha to answer.
I hope he speaks through me. All of these teachings coming again from the sage Vyasadeva, right? So he writes the broad Vedic literature. He writes the 4 Vedas. He writes the Upanishads, Mahabharata with the Bhagavad Gita. He gives a summary of really the Upanishadic teachings in what's called the Vedanta Sutra. And then he gives the Puranas, all these huge collections of stories or histories, and culminating in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's a wide range of literature. This is not a simplistic presentation. This is a very broad presentation that's meant to accommodate all types of mindsets, all types of faith, and so it's helping us approach God or approach the divine in a way that'll be suitable for us in the place where we're at that time. So if we read Yoga Sutras, for instance, if you let's look at this. You got 6 chapter Bhagavad Gita, and you got Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. There's obvious connections that obviously Patanjali was very familiar with the Bhagavad Gita. As a matter of fact, sometimes he's practically, it's when he describes Ishvara there, it's drawing straight from the connections to Bhagavad Gita are very clear. When he defines practice, he defines it he gives it straight out of 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So there's connections there. But when Krishna's speaking about what he calls Dhyana Yoga, which is basically Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, this particular path of yoga, he describes it as he describes what you do in very broad strokes. You go alone into the forest, you sit, it's how you sit, where you sit, how you begin to concentrate your mind, how you bring it back, etc. And then he's saying that you're going within, and then he's saying that you find that part of Atma within. You find you find God within, and then he says, and then he begins to glorify that yogi that understands that God within is Krishna, right? And then he's saying, and one who sees me everywhere and everything, one who sees me and everything in me, I'm never lost to them, they're never lost to me. He goes deeper into this very personal, that this Ashtanga yogi connects with him ultimately in a very personal way as Krishna. Now, when Patanjali describes the same yoga, he's describing so much of the same thing, but he's not describing Krishna. When he gets to what you should chant if you want to connect with this Ishvara, he doesn't say the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. He says Om. Right? You meditate on Om. So we can understand that what he's doing here is he's giving a presentation for people that might not be ready to say, I want Krishna in my life. I want a personal God in my life. So, okay, Krishna's like, okay, in one sense, when you come from the full Vaishnava Bhakti perspective, you understand, wow, it's like Krishna is just like saying, okay, it's almost like we're a little bit like, I don't want to see your face. And he's like, that's okay if you don't want to see my face. Yeah. What?
I want to see yours. By the way, I've had remembrance. I have remembrance.
Okay, well, just let me finish out. Yeah,
And I got this. It was an analogy that I never said before until you asked her, and I felt like I feel like just Krishna spoke to give me this analogy. Now I will clarify if this is a spiritual analogy, if Kaustubha gives me the double thumbs up.
Okay. And so that's an example. I'm just using that as an example to show how the presentation is broad and it's ready to give you connection to the divine wherever you're at. I really have to memorize this, but Krishnamacharya, are you familiar? Krishnamacharya was a very important figure in modern yoga history. He was the guru to many important yoga teachers who were essential in bringing yoga to the West, including Iyengar and Pattabhi Jois and a few other important teachers. And he was asked, what was the question exactly? It had to do with what is the purpose of yoga asana? And he said, for one who has faith, is to connect the jiva, the soul, with the Paramatma. And so that means one who has faith that God exists in this personal type of form. And he said, for one who doesn't have faith in the Paramatma, he just broke it down on 3 levels. Then I'm sorry, it's not all coming to me right now, but basically he said, like, if you have faith, then yoga asana will do this for you. And if you don't have faith in that, then and if you don't have any faith in, I think those who have faith in Paramatma, it's to connect you with Paramatma. Those who have faith in Atma, meaning I believe that I'm eternal, I don't necessarily believe that there's some God directing all this, then it's to help you realize your own self. And for those that don't have faith in Atma, like in others, they don't even believe that they're eternal, then it will help you with, like, on the physical level. It was something like that. So again, it's broad and it's meant to help us connect wherever we can. Om, we find throughout the Vedas, throughout the Upanishads. For people that, this is before the literature goes into detailed description of Sri Krishna in all his beauty and his qualities, his pastimes. It's for people that aren't ready to approach that. But Om is Krishna, but it's not Krishna. It's not like when we chant Om, it's not like chanting Govinda, right? When we chant Om, it is the pure spiritual energy of Krishna without all the personal details of Krishna. So it's valuable to chant. It's beautiful to chant. We accept all of it. We accept Krishna, the energy of Krishna, the Paramatma of Krishna, we accept, and the sweet baby Krishna, we accept him on all levels. When we chant Om, it's without, chanting Om will never touch the heart in the way that chanting Govinda, chanting Krishna can touch the heart. But chanting Om is touching Krishna. So it's just a gradation of the nature of that, the nature of the warmth, the intimacy of that connection. The Om is on the outer edge of that. And Krishna, Govinda, Shama Sundar, these names, these very personal names, are at the core, the other end of the gradation of the very personal, warm, sweet, intimate love.
Good answer. Good answer.
You're
Well, this was, I wanted to say it because it was an analogy I've never used before. And I thought it was a good question. Whereas this Om is this bead mantra, these seed mantras, and we chant Om. It takes you, in one sense, it's not a material mantra. It's not a mantra. It's not a Rajasic mantra or Tamasic mantra, which there are. It's not a mantra for things. It's a mantra of otherworldliness, out of this material realm. But it's not a personal mantra. It's not directed towards an Ishta or a particular Devata, towards Lord Vishnu. So you don't get bhakti. You get mukti from these mantra, the chanting Om. You get out of your bodiness. But in bhakti, we're connecting to, we're trying to fall in love. So I use this example. Tell me what you think of this, Kaustubha. Sometimes a teenager or someone, you have an older son or daughter that moves out of the house, and they have a very sweet connection with the parents still. And it's in that love, they have a loving exchange. And sometimes the parent has a kid that moves out of the house. They're not really connected with that kid anymore, but they're happy that that kid is, doing well, successful in their career, has a successful family, but there's no connection with Bhagawan, the parent. So when we're chanting Om, it's like you're in a spiritual realm, but there's no intimate, loving exchange. You're out of this body, so to speak, and you're nodding, sort of nodding, but sort of like, hey, you like it or no?
It's, in other words, Om is beyond the material energy, beyond the modes of material nature.
But there's no rasa, there's no sweetness in connection. Like you said, when we chant Govinda, it's much different. You're calling out to sweet Krishna, the lover of the gopis, the cowherd boy. There's almost like a charm that comes with that. I was going to say joy, but I'm sure there's joy in chanting Om, but there's like a charm.
And there's a charm to that personality, to those qualities, but we may disassociate qualities and personality from spirituality. That's like, you could say that's an initial spiritual approach, that if variety and form and personality have caused me so much pain, and if that's what material life looks like, then spiritual life must be without personality, without individuality, without form. And so I think of God as non-personal, spiritual, but non-personal. Om connects there.
That's beautiful. Miss Mara, you did. Yeah, that was good. No, I agree. I think that was it. All right. I think that's it for the day. Thanks to everybody for joining us live. Thanks for everybody on Zoom. We got a very special show tomorrow. We don't even know what it is yet, but it's going to be very special. You know why? Because whenever you add Lord Krishna to your life, things become special. Thanks to everyone who's here for YTT. Thanks for all the farm stay yogis. Thanks for our Zoom community. And thank you for those mysterious others. Everybody wave. Yeah, look at the living room. Woo! Hey, me and Kaustubha. It's coming up, Kaustubha. You and me, kid. Huh? Going up to the top of the hill, wrestling, rolling down the hill, laughing. Blowing dandelion puppies in each other's faces. It's going to happen today. Today's the day we've been dreaming of.
It's gonna
happen. Sneaking up behind you with a pillow. You're laughing. You find a random pillow. Hit me back. I go into the kitchen, get some pudding. Mara makes some pudding. I feed you some pudding. Get it back to me. Everybody, thanks for everybody joining in on that chat board. Remember, if you like what we're doing here, share it with your friends. You can share it. You can like it. You can subscribe. You can comment on Apple. I always read these Apple reviews, Apple podcast reviews. Write your story, what you like of the show. Give us a 5-star review. Tell us what you think of all this stuff. Tell us how you got here, and it's great. I think that encourages other people to write, and it ranks our podcast higher in the search algorithms, and hopefully, we will retain our number one in the religious Hinduism studies. Because remember, it's all about competition and becoming number one in this world to really be happy. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day. Let the magic continue to flow. Hello. Yeah.